Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today for Coffee, Conversations, and Compliance. Need that caffeine this morning. So great to have all of you. I'm Michelle Costin with Elite Educational Enterprises, and I'll be going over minimum standards updates that occurred late last year. We have updates from August, September, and December, and I've had a lot of questions. What are the updates, and can somebody just put them in one place? So that's what I've done for you today. So excited to have you, and let's get started. So, what's new? Minimum standards. Just so you know, the most updated minimum standards um, regulations is December 2024. So, we'll look at what's new. This information is being presented by Elite Educational Enterprises. Myself, I'm Michelle Costin, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Table of contents. We'll go over what some of the words and terms mean because they did add quite a few in Texas last year. And so you'll definitely want to go over all of those and just see if there's any changes that you notice as you're updating your handbooks. What are the telephone numbers and contact information? Written operational policies. There were a few added. What are the parents' rights? And I know most of you did a great job. You got those in your handbooks. There's a form for that. But again, just double checking, making sure you're doing both, that they are in your handbook and they are, parents are filling out that new form as well. What about the admissions information? They updated the admissions information, and the newest application admission form is January 2025. What about information that you have to share? What's a director, an interim director? Who can you designate? There was an additional training requirement if you're going to be utilizing the swimming pools this summer. Think school age. I know many of you are either have it all planned or getting your summer programs all set up. So anything, any water 18 inches and over, that's a swimming pool. And you'll want to look at those new training requirements as well. What about those inflatable play equipment, bounce houses, etc.? They have information in there for that as well. And additional activities and ratios during water play and swimming. So what do certain words mean in terms of what we discussed back here? What are certain words? What are the terms? So one that I really looked at was just making sure that we're looking at the meanings. We all know that, parenting, parents, legal guardian. So anytime you need to have that information as well, just ensure that you have that also for any legal guardian. So check out all of those terms because they did update and they did add a few additional terms to describe what a wading pool is, water play, and swimming activities. What are the telephone numbers that you have to have posted? So make sure they're in a prominent place. Do your staff have access? Do you have access as a director or owner? Classroom educators, parents, do they have access? Would they know who to call? And 911 typical, that's typical for a lot of cities in Texas, but you might have rural counties that you need to post in the law enforcement. They may have a different emergency medical. Make sure you have poison control. What's the hotline number? And also your childcare regulation office, the one nearest you, and the information about your own center. What's great is they have a form for that. So it's form, as you see, 7243. So what's great about that, as long as you fill all this out, you're compliant. What could be really useful for a lot of families is also having access to this form. So this may be something that you could create a page in your family handbook or it might be something that you can have posted on your parent board because you can see it has local offices. These are all clickable, so it can be useful then also to maybe email or send electronically for your families. So it just lists everything that you need to have. So just make sure you have your licensing office, their phone number, and their address. And I always like to just add my rep's name as well. Again, licensing is there to help support us and ensure our programs are compliant and to help us get and stay compliant. And so it's okay that your educators, those that you work for and work with, also have access to your licensing reps information as well. What about those written policies? Well, there are a lot of operational policies that you must have, and they must be in writing. So think about these. There's so many, and a lot of them didn't change. What are the policies? Your hours, your days. Do you operate 12 months or only 11 months? Procedures for release of children. We do have forms that that families fill out for us, but it's important that you have this all in writing as well. This is right in minimum standards. You can copy and paste this, put the information right underneath to help create your emergency preparedness, your family handbooks, and even your employee handbooks. This information is very relevant for your educators too. What are the procedures for the release of children? Sometimes we forget to put these in for our employees and to let them know what are they supposed to do. If a parent walks in or a grandparent and they've never met them before, do they know they should be checking an ID? Do you have a policy in place that somebody at the front always checks an ID? So just ensure that you are reminding your classroom educators of what these policies are as well. What about medical emergencies? Do they know that there's the one that's supposed to call 911? Get help right away. Do they understand what the discipline and guidance policies are at your school that relate to minimum standards? It's really important. I've seen a lot of information. Children are biting. I'm not sure what to do. So, do you have a suspension or expulsion policy for children that maybe are exhibiting a behavior that we or you do not have the capability of supporting or servicing? And so it's really important to make sure you have those policies in writing as well in your family handbooks. Do your staff know? And of course, that safe sleep policies. And again, minimum standards, there's a form for that. Just ensure you also have it in writing in your policies. And then what are your enrollment procedures? How and when will parents be notified of policy changes? Now, if you don't have transportation, maybe you're not doing outdoor field trips or where you're leaving your site. Maybe you don't pick up kids or drop off kids at school. I always like to make sure that when I'm writing my operational policies for my center or any centers that I support, I like to make sure I just put transportation does not apply. It can really help your licensing representative, especially as we know, we often get new ones every couple of years. And they don't have to ask you, do you have a transportation policy? If it's missing, you've already written it in there. Transportation, though, on number 14, could also be part of your emergency preparedness. We do provide transportation in an emergency. And so those are some things that you could consider including in this line item as well. What about those water activities? Now, they really did change. A lot of our program guides said water play, sprinkler play, water tables. But look at the new regulations for water activities because you may need to update this line item as well. Field trips. Do you ever take walks around your program on the outside of fences? And you can talk about this as well. Maybe you take your infants on the buggies or the strollers. And so just talk about it's on the same property outside our fence line. Really ensure that you have these policies in place so your staff know, but also that parents understand that a field trip could just be going outside of your playground? Do you have any pets or animals, including fish? Um, might you have a petting zoo sometime and somebody's going to bring in the pigs and the goats? We like to do that sometimes at our fall festivals. Maybe you have a plan to go to the zoo this summer. So on number 17, you can include that. Animals might be included in field trips. And maybe it's bringing in some livestock, a donkey, or like I said, some pigs uh, in there as well. And you can also include in here the animals that licensing excludes, such as chickens and reptiles. More written operational policies. I mean, it really is quite long. So we won't go through all of them, but just look at, does your policy include information about indoor and outdoor activities? Is this in writing somewhere for not only parents, but for your educators as well? What type of indoor and outdoor physical activities? And this one's very specific about physical activities. What are the settings that you will be using? Do you do physical activities in the classroom? Do you have a designated space? Might you use your hallways on rainy days or when it's too hot? So just kind of look at your school, look at the things that you're doing, and just ensure that you have them in writing. And then part E right here is about recommended clothing and footwear that will allow a child to participate freely and safety. So if you don't want flip-flops or other kind of sandal, I would like to call them open-toed shoes, it's important to put that there as well. And just to say these are the expectations that we have at school. More written policies. What about procedures for applying insect repellent sunscreen? Also, what types will be used? Are there, does your school provide it? Is there a brand? Are parents signing off on that? When, procedures for providing and applying. Parents provide it, school provides it. Who's applying the sunscreen? What are the policies for applying insect repellent and sunscreen? There could be other topical options that you allow at your school as well. Include these in your procedures and ensure that it's also available to your early childhood educators in the classrooms. Parents' rights. We're going to talk about that section too. And also procedures for parents to review and discuss questions and concerns about any of your policies and procedures. And also, how do parents participate? It's really important. Think about number 22. What are the various ways that you want to invite parents to participate? Hey, spend 15 minutes with us in the morning. When you come and pick up, stay as long as you want. Does anybody want to be, a parent group, a parent committee, and they are planning the activities? Maybe some of your bigger events, fall festival, Friendsgiving, maybe some winter holiday celebrations. And this is a great area to put this information in for your parents to let them know, here's some ways. Something that I really love to implement at schools is that parents can take a video or an audio recording of them reading a book that the school can supply, and that you can play their recording of them reading a book. And it's really great for kids too. It's like, that's my parent reading that book. So what are some ways? And think about the ways you can maintain inclusivity and include those parents that maybe don't have the ability to spend much time at your program other than for drop off and pick up. What are some outside the box ways that they can participate? How can a parent access minimum standards? Do they have access to that, the online websites? Do you have a copy of minimum standards? I don't really recommend it right now. It looks like we're going to get some more changes this year. And that can be a lot of paper, but can you send them the link? Can that be part of your enrollment packet? That there's a one-page form that, remember that form, that's what phone numbers do I need to have? You could have that as a copy that you give to parents as part of their enrollment paperwork as well. What is your emergency preparedness plan? Do parents know what an emergency drill looks like so that they can help also prepare their children? Do they even know that you have drills? What is your policy for if a drill is happening and a parent tries to come and pick up? Do you make the parent stay? Do you let them take their child in the midst of a drill? What are your policies about this as well? And your provision for a comfortable place with adult-sized seat in your center or within a classroom that enables a parent to either breastfeed or feed their child. You may have, other parents, or maybe a grandparent comes in and they want to feed an infant as well. And as long as it's okay with the parents, do you have a place that a family could go and continue that connectedness with the child as well? And you also need to include information that parents have the right to breastfeed or provide breast milk. Another thing is, we talk about this a lot, and we do this annual training for our classroom educators, the responding to abuse and neglect, right? How do we prevent that? It's really important that parents are aware of this as well, because the more eyes and ears we have in our programs, the safer we'll be. And it's really important that parents understand that we need them. They're choosing us to care for the child all day, but it's not drop off at the door and then they're no longer have value to us. So it's really important that they're helping us to keep children as safe as we possibly can. What are annual training hours? What did they consist of? Methods for increasing employee and parent awareness of the issues. And this is why, what is your method? And that's why it's so important, right? Employees need to know, but parents need to know as well. And what is the parent's responsibility if they their child is a victim? So there's information about that as well. What's the resource? Who should they call? And last but not least, procedures for conducting health checks. I know most programs are still trying to have a conversation with the parent who's dropping off. You may be also, doing a once over, asking a few questions. If you want to make sure that parents understand why you need those couple of minutes with them at drop off, include that in your procedures. Ensure that parents know, hey, when you come in, we just want to ask you a couple questions. How was your weekend? How's their morning? Because we're just trying to get a better assessment of how that child might be doing throughout the day, things we might need to look for. And if you can have that in a policy, that can really go a long way for parents to understand you're not trying to keep them from work. You understand they have a busy day, but you want to keep their child as safe as possible. And then there needs to be information on vaccine preventable diseases for employees. And it's not that they have to go get any vaccines, but it's just information for them as well. Now, this is the one that I noticed is pretty well updated as well. Does your operation keep an EpiPen, an epinephrine auto-injector, most of us call them EpiPens, on site? Maybe a parent said, hey, here's an extra one that I have. It's pretty rare. They do expire within, I think it's a year. But what if you did have an emergency? We have a lot of children joining our programs that haven't eaten any table food yet. I try not to provide food that maybe a family or child hasn't had before. But the trick is that it could take a few times eating something or being exposed to something to develop that allergy or anaphylaxis in this case. So do you have an epinephrine pen on your site? And then you just need to make sure that you also put this information in your policy as well. What do you do with it? Where is it? When would it be used? And procedures for supporting inclusive services to children with special care needs. So it is important that you have that in there as well. And that could be a child who has an allergy who's bringing an EpiPen to school. You need to write a procedure about how you would handle any child with special care needs. All right, that one was a long one. So now we're going to come to what rights does a parent of a child in your center have? So there is a form, and all of the information that I'm going to go through right now is on that form, and I'll get to that slide as well. Remember, they can enter and examine your center during any hours of operation without notice. They can file a complaint, and we need to provide that information for them. They can review any of your publicly accessible records, licensing compliance, who's your governing body. So anything that you filled out for licensing, they can access that as well. They can review your written records concerning the parent's rights. So in your policy, this section needs to be in your policies, in your parent handbook. Plus, you'll have a form that they can sign as well. They can receive your inspection reports. Now, typically, we have those posted up on the parent board. But if they ask for a copy, I would provide a copy and the website where they can go and see them as well. They have a right that we're going to comply with any valid court orders. Make sure we're keeping those in a child's file. They have a right to be provided, again, with that contact information about regulations, the department, the name, the address, and the telephone number. Use that form. If you have any video equipment, maybe it's just for your admin team, anything that's recorded, they can view that. So they can view the incident. They can't retain any of it. And if there's other children in there, you would be required to notify any of the other children, and you need to notify them in writing. Again, they can obtain a copy of your policies and procedures. So hopefully you have this electronic. I know sometimes if I get too much paper, am I keeping track of it? But have a paper copy in your maybe near your parent board or at your front desk, so that it just says centers, policies, and procedures. A parent just might want to thumb through it. It's great for your staff to, keep apprised of what's in there as well. And then they can review, a parent can ask to review your staff training records and any in-house training curriculum. So whatever your curriculum is, maybe you're part of a franchise and they share that curriculum, part of your onboarding process, parents are allowed to review that as well. And we have to remember that we can't retaliate. They are free from retaliation for exercising any of their parent rights, including any problems or challenges they may report. And so here's the parents' rights form. It's form 2987. And what's great about this is that you will provide this with two parents so that they can sign and date it. I like to put the child's name at the top because I can never recognize signatures. And also just copy and paste this information and put it in your policies and procedures as well. Because we keep a copy, you could give a copy to a parent, but will they remember to keep it? So copy and paste this, put it right in your policies and procedures. All right, admission information. What kinds of information do you need to provide? Let's go look. Now, the form 2935, it was updated January 2025. So very, very recently. So you don't have to grab that form and have all of the families in your program. Maybe they just started back in November. You don't have to say, oh, you have a whole nother one to fill out, but you're going to want to look at some of the additions to that form because you need to ensure that parents are signing off on the new water play expectations and making sure that they also have the name, address, and telephone number of somebody other than the parents or guardians that could or should be contacted in an emergency. So just ensure you're using the most updated um, admissions information. And many people have been having a challenge opening it. It looks like you need to have a PDF reader. So names and telephone numbers, permission for transportation. Now that's really important because on that part of the admission form, it does say for emergencies. And so ensure that parents are signing off on that. Field trips. Remember, if you're leaving your center, taking walks, you want parents to be signing off on that. The physician or an emergency care facility. Is there someplace nearby? Is that where, an ambulance would take a child? What about a children's hospital? And then that authorization to obtain emergency medical care. Ensure that that gets signed. That's one that often gets missed because it's a very small section. And we know the admissions form is 6 pages. In that admissions form also is a statement of the child's special care needs. And we need to ensure that we're having what are limitations or restrictions on a child's activities. Do you require medical information for that? Something from a healthcare practitioner. What are the special care instructions? Reasonable accommodations or modifications? Do you utilize any adaptive equipment? Symptoms or indications of potential complications? What are some things that we should be looking out for? And any medication that is prescribed for continuous long-term use. Now you got those, school-age kids coming, or maybe you only take in school-age kids for the summer. Ensure that you have that information about what school they've attended, because then you don't have to get their shot records. If you have before and after school kids, do they ride a bus? Are they allowed to walk by themselves? Can they be released to a sibling who's not 18? How about allergies? Make sure you're grabbing that food allergy and emergency plan. And sometimes health practitioners want to fill out their own. That's okay. Just make sure they know all of the information that is required to be included. And here's that part about permission for participation in water activities. If you provide them, do you use sensory tables? Do you have sprinklers in the summer? And then if you allow child access to a swimming pool, maybe you're going to be doing that this summer with your school age kids. Parents have to indicate whether they can swim competently. You want to look up what that means in American Red Cross, and it is part of the definitions as well. Do they require a flotation device because they're not able to swim competently, or are they at risk of injury or death when swimming or otherwise accessing water? And look at technical assistance, because it'll be really important to read about the paragraphs. And this talks about water safety and swimming skills. So step or jump into the water over an individual's head, return to the surface and float or tread water for 1 minute, turns around in a full circle, and can swim 25 yards. This is what American Red Cross says is a competent swimmer, that they can do these things. And can they exit from the water, and if it's a pool, without using the ladder? So you are not expected to swim test any of the children, but share with the parents what it means to swim competently. If they said, oh, yeah, they had swimming lessons, did they get a form for that? Did somebody say, yes, they can swim competently based on American Red Cross? I like to have as much information as possible in a child's file. What information must you maintain in your personnel records? So documentation showing the date, their first day on the job, that they meet some documentation that they meet the minimum age and education qualifications. I know oftentimes we're utilizing maybe a government ID that has a birth date, and what are their education qualifications? Are you grabbing a diploma? Are you asking for transcripts from any college that they've had? And a copy of a healthcare card or healthcare professional statement about TB, only if it's required in your area. Now, licensing doesn't determine this. And so I don't want to unnecessarily ask my educators, go get a TB test. Check with your local health department or your regional Texas Department of State Health Services. Remember Form 2985, we've been using that one for a long time, the affidavit for employment. But then now we have a pre-employment affidavit. And the pre-employment affidavit talks about, sorry about that, talks about them, the educator saying, yes, this is my affidavit. That one does not need to be notarized. But you do have to have both. One needs to be notarized, one does not. Fun fact, many local libraries will do notarization for free. And what are the training hours? What's the requirement? Now, minimum standards is 24 for an educator and 30 for a director. But are you Texas Rising Star? Do you need to add those additional ones as well? Just ensure that you are documenting what are the minimum standards for licensing. And if you want to put in your policies as well, we also add these additional training hours for Texas Rising Star. Do you have your staff sign something and date it? Training records are great. There's that form about pre-service training. Make sure they're signing and dating, and that they get a copy of your operational policies and your personnel policies. And, sometimes I put even these operational policies, make sure they're in your personnel policies as well. Proof of request for the background check. So you can print that page as you're filling it out online. There's also the hard copy that you can show that you submitted. Any information that you get about proof of request, maybe it's the email that you get that they're eligible or that they need to get fingerprinting as well. Keep that in their employee file also. A copy of a photo ID. You'll only need a person's driver's license if they're driving your school bus, but a driver's license or government ID can substantiate number 9. Passports do as well. And then a statement signed and dated by the employee verifying the dates the employee attended training during orientation. And so it's really important that you have those dates. Maybe you do your entire orientation in one day. That's all right. Just ensure that you're putting dates there as well. And then we had some new information for directors' certificates. What's an interim director? Who can be designated an interim director? And if an interim director can then serve as a director once a center receives its full license. So they did a lot of information about that as well. And that was December 2024. So a director's certificate doesn't expire unless the director was qualified under. So how were you qualified? Did you get a credential? Do you have a CDA? So what are some ways that you were qualified under? And then you can look at these different areas within minimum standards, and you can see if you have an expiring, unexpiring. An interim director is an individual designated to serve as a director. You have the same responsibilities as a center director as well. And your center, maybe you're the owner too, you can designate an individual to serve as an interim director. If you're operating on your initial license, remember your license for the first year is your initial license. And as long as you do well, then you get your permanent license. Individual needs to meet all the requirements to serve as director, except the educational requirements in this section relating to what qualifications. And section 746.1017 as well, for a center that's licensed for 12 or fewer children. Also, someone serving as an interim director may serve as the center director once you receive your full license if you've completed the educational requirements. So what's nice about that is if you're opening a center and you have somebody with a lot of experience, but maybe doesn't have that educational requirement yet, that first year gives them an opportunity and gives you as an owner an opportunity to help them get the educational requirement they need. So once you get your full license after your first year, they can now be your director. Or you can try to obtain a waiver or a variance. What are the training requirements for your employees, caregivers, and directors? And must the training for your caregivers, your educators, and the director meet certain criteria? Yes. Licensing really lays that out for us. But here's the newest one. So the newest one that I saw going through minimum standards was water safety training. And so the director, if the center allows children to access swimming pools at or away from the center. So are you going to Hawaiian Falls? Are you going to be having swimming lessons for kids? So we just have to make sure that any of us that are going to be with children in swimming pools, and a swimming pool is 18 inches of water or more, that we have water safety training as well. And then it's an annual training. Who can provide training? This, again, another question. You see, I just pulled out number 6 and 7. Otherwise, this training would be a couple hours today. But who can provide training? So there's been a lot of questions. Can the director at my program provide training? Yes, if they meet certain requirements, and they can only provide training to that school. So you might have maybe you have 3 schools and you have a director at one that does a great job training. They can still only provide training to that school's employees. So does your director have demonstrated core knowledge in child development and caregiving? Make sure your school's not on probation. Make sure your school hasn't been assessed an administrative penalty. And that the only caregivers receiving the training are employees of your child care center. So that director and their employees that director can provide all the training as long as they meet all of these requirements as well. And a person who has at least 2 years of experience working in child development, a child development program, early child development education, a child education program, Head Start or early Head Start, and has a current CDA or associate's degree or better can also provide the training. So your director can, as long as they meet these requirements, and then a person. So you maybe want to have an outside trainer. Maybe you have a regional director and they qualify under one of these items under number 7. So, and again, make sure you get copies of that information and keep that in your employee file. This was new in minimum standards. Can you use inflatable active play equipment? Think bounce houses. I've seen schools use the blow up water slides for water play on their playgrounds as well. So yes, you can use enclosed inflatables, those bounce houses, whatever they're called. Just make sure you're using them based on manufacturer's instructions. Open inflatables, the obstacle courses, the slides, the games. So think of that one that has a big slide that can go down into water, or maybe it's some padding. Again, manufacturer's labels. Inflatables that include water activity also comply with all applicable requirements for swimming. So the one I'm telling you about that has a slide with the pool at the end, just make sure that it complies with the inflatable as well as whatever your swimming pool's weightings and sprinkler play information as well. Must you have additional caregivers for wading activities? Yes, you must. So a wading activity is, think the small plastic pools that many programs might bring out in their onto their playgrounds in the summertime. And a wading pool is anything that's under 18 inches of water. So 17 inches of water, those small wading pools. And this is the supervision for them as well. So if it is a wading pool, even if you only have an inch in there, these are the caregiver to child ratios. So the youngest child, if the age of the youngest child is under age 2, it's 1 adult for every 1 child. But they also do a group size. So it's 2 adults for every 4 children. So just think wading pools. Those big plastic pools that we like to use, anything under 18 inches of water, these are the ratios that you have to have. Here's the age group as well. Same with your 4s and 5s. So it can be for your 4s, 1 to 16, almost a classroom ratio. 3-year-olds is only 1 to 6. 5, and then your older kids, you can get the group size up there pretty good. So when children are using a wading pool while mixing with children and adults who are not from your child care center, you must follow the child caregiver ratios for field trips. So read through this really well. I'd recommend make a copy, post it for part of your playground activities for this summer. Ensure that your educators understand what the ratios are if you have your wading pools out there. What about safety requirements for wading pools? Persons who are counted in the child caregiver ratios, knowing how to swim, and additional safety precautions for children who are unable to swim or who are at risk of injury or death when swimming. So remember, children must not be allowed to swim in a body of water other than swimming pools. So we can't, you can't take them to the lake, rivers. This might not pertain to a lot, but I wanted to make sure, since licensing put it in minimum standards, wanted to make sure everyone's highly aware, swimming pools only. So wading pools at your center, stored out of reach, drained at least once a day, and sanitized, stored so they can't hold water. The person's counting in childcare in the ratios during swimming, they they have to know how to swim. So each caregiver included in ratios in 18 inches or more of water must be able to swim and must be prepared to do so in an emergency. So as a director of programs, I want to have that in writing as well. Is there a form you can create for your employees if they're going to be, going to the swimming pools or going to, Hawaiian Falls or some of those other water attractions that they're signing off that they are saying, yes, I know how to swim. What are some additional precautions you must take? You must take. So this says that if the child's unable to swim, that we need to provide this kind of approved personal flotation device. So it needs to be a type 1, 2, or 3. You have to ensure the child's wearing it and that it's properly fitted and fastened. Good repair and meet requirements. You are not required to provide this safety device if children are participating in swim instruction. So maybe you have a swim class and that's part of your field trip. They're not required to wear a personal flotation device at that time. But here's the part that, this is why it's so important to call our reps, because it specifically says that we need to provide. It says provide the child with a type 1, 2, or 3. Can the parents bring it? Are we ensuring that it's meeting the requirements, that it's a Coast Guard approved? So how are you going to do that if you are taking kids that need to be wearing their personal flotation device? And here we are, minimum standards for childcare centers. And that is all of the new things that I saw for last year for August, September, and December 2024. Of course, anytime you have any questions about minimum standards, how they're implemented, reach out to your representative, send them an email, get confirmation in writing from them. Even if you have a conversation on the telephone or in person, follow up with an email and get clarifications from your representatives. We know if you've been in this business long enough, each rep may interpret minimum standards slightly differently. These are the newest ones so far. However, it looks like as of February, we may have one more change. So be on the lookout in your emails and for an update at minimum standards as well. And thank you so much for joining me today. Again, my name is Michelle Costin with Elite Educational Enterprises. Please contact us for any future training needs. We do in-person, online, and webinars. And we love to be able to provide any information that can be useful and assist you in having the safest, most competent programs out there. Again, thank you so much. And it was lovely talking with all of you today.